if my friend or partner or whoever got a Prius Prime, the current gen, this 2024, then ladies and gentlemen, 2024 Prius Prime SE. First things first, I'm sure a lot of you thought when this first got announced, what? How is that a Prius? It looks so good. Nice sporty rear end. Overall, the car looks way more premium, higher price point than it actually is. This comes around $34,000 because there are 3 Prius Primes, and of course the Prime meaning plug-in hybrid technology in Toyota's lineup. This is the SE, there's the XSE above, and then the highest is the XSE Premium. So with this trim, we have 17-inch wheels wrapped in 195 section width tires, low rolling resistance tires. You actually get a little bit more range with this versus the higher end trims that have 19-inch wheels. You gotta love those boomerang headlights. I mean, some people are comparing it to similar lines to the SF90 Ferrari, which I think is hilarious. A Prius being compared to a Ferrari. It looks really nice. They did a fantastic job styling this. Now let me make another supercar reference because look at the front sloping windshield. And even how the roofline curves this way. This really low acute angled windshield on mid-engine supercars, right? Obviously, I'm being a bit tongue-in-cheek right now, but this looks really nice and sleek and premium. And even though they don't have, these like fancy, air curtains by the wheels and such, you still have a really low coefficient of drag. Really good looking car. The blue is a little bit dark for me, but man, these lines are surprising. Now, the roofline sloping down, sporty, but here's the thing. Getting into the rear, I'm 6'1", and my head is touching the top liner. So you are losing a little bit of practicality over prior gens, but it looks way, way better. Keep in mind, these doors, they're not actual buttons. It's like an electronic release, a little bit of a pause of a split second. You get used to it, not a big deal. But I've been living with this car for the last few days here in San Diego. And I want to clarify some things because I think there's a lot of misunderstandings about the Prius. The first thing is the interior. So with this really long sloping windshield, you do have very long A-pillars, and that does compromise your visibility quite a bit. You're gonna notice that as soon as you get in, not the best visibility, but the driving assist that Toyota has in this latest suite, they're quite good. They're actually quite seamless and quite unobtrusive. Now, I've been driving this in charge mode here to recharge the battery because I haven't been plugging it in. So you can force charge it where it will run the 2-liter inline-4, and that's up from the 1.8-liter inline-4 from the previous gen. And that 2-liter inline-4 can charge the battery, like right now when I'm parked, the engine is running, and we just went from 34 to 35%. Now that engine makes 160 horsepower, and combined with the electric motors, there's 2. One drives the front wheels, and one actually pairs with the CVT. You're getting a total output of 220 horsepower. That's 99 more horsepower than the prior gen, so definitely a much needed boost. On this trim, we have the smaller 8-inch screen in the XSE and XSE Premium. You can get the 12-inch. Now here, the gauge cluster. This is what I want to talk about because a lot of the time, people are putting the steering wheel up and actually blocking the gauges. But proper driver ergonomics, and Porsche has this beautiful video on getting proper driver posture, you want to generally have the steering wheel lower than how most people place it. And Porsche even says that frequently people will place the steering wheel too low to the point where they can't actually see the gauges right here, right? So people want to put it a little bit lower, but then they have to put it higher than they would naturally go based on the design of the vehicle. So what I like is the gauge being behind for 2 reasons. Number one, I can have the steering wheel nice and low where it's actually ergonomic. My hands are right around shoulder height, maybe a teeny bit lower, and the steering wheel nice and compact. But the other thing, and I've talked about this in my Mazda CX-50 video, is that the screen being further away requires less accommodation from your eyes. So when you need to focus on something closer, you have these ciliary muscles in your eye, and they need to contract, which is why when you're reading your book, or more likely your phone, way too close for long periods of time, you feel that eye strain because your ciliary muscles are working really hard. Not good for your eyes. So having the gauges right here versus further back is actually easier on your eye. Not only are your ciliary muscles more relaxed, but now when you're switching from viewing this to viewing something further ahead, there's less of a change in accommodation, that's the term, accommodation of your eyes when you need to focus far to near versus if it was really close. Which is also why having a regular rear view mirror is generally nicer for your eyes versus a screen. Because when you have a camera here or a screen that's displaying what's behind you, then your eyes need to focus really, really close versus here, I can actually just use the mirror and see far away. My eyes are relaxed. All right, enough of that. You do have some nice little red accents for the Prime trim. In this SE trim, we only have a single climate, not dual climate, but I like the feeling of these buttons. This little cliff right here, nice texture, nice engagement to them. And the piano black is on the section that you don't really touch that often. I will say that the gauge cluster here, a little bit cluttered, takes a little bit of time to get used to because there's a lot of information. And now we're gonna switch this to sport mode. We're gonna go to auto, EV, HV, rather than forcing the charge. And of course the shifter, like all previous Priuses, is a little bit funky, but you get used to it. And we're off. A lot of people criticize Toyota saying that they need to focus more on BEVs, battery EVs versus hybrids. And Toyota pushes back saying, hey, there's an issue with resource allocation. And for every one BEV, they can make something like 70 to 90 hybrids. When you look at the carbon impact, that's obviously going to be much greater. With the plug-in hybrid, with the Prius Prime on this SE trim, you can actually get 44 miles of battery only before then the hybrid kicks in. And that's what most people want, because that range anxiety when you have 200, 300 miles and it's going to change based on temperature, it's range anxiety, emphasis on anxiety. Whereas when you have the hybrid, you have the best of both worlds. And Toyota's newest technology here, super seamless. I mean, even previous generations of Prius, they have done a great job integrating the transition from battery to petrol. And here, I've been driving for a few days. The only thing that really gives it away is the sound of the engine, because it's a buzzy 4-cylinder, not the smoothest engine, but again, the way that they tune that transition from battery to petrol, really, really seamless. If you've driven the previous gen Priuses, the first thing that will strike you is that this one actually looks good. It's actually a nice looking car. And the second thing is that in this Prime configuration, making 220 horsepower, it's not fast, but it's no longer slow. It's not sluggish. 0 to 60 in 6.7 seconds, and with the EV mode only, you're around 11.2 seconds. But when you need to overtake, or anything that is really required of you in daily driver duties, you're not suffering with this drivetrain anymore. And it's soft and comfortable. The styling looks sporty, but I'm not sure if you can tell, even taking these sweepers here, you're getting a good amount of body roll because the car is tuned to be soft and comfortable and a good daily driver. Speaking of driver assist now, I was able to try out the traffic jam assist, and it was fantastic. They have these sensors right here to make sure that you're paying attention, and it's not overly, it's not too strict of a nanny, but it allows you to much more easily navigate traffic jams without that annoying, go, stop, go, stop. It'll go all the way to a stop and keep an adequate distance. You can control that very easily right here with this button. As you can see, I'm going, that's the closest, and that's the farthest, like that. Those little aids, they really help with the overall drivability of the vehicle. And overall, I've been really impressed because a friend of mine had the previous gen, and I would kind of rag on them for Priuses have a reputation, they drive a certain way. I have driven their car a few times, and if you're a car enthusiast, I mean, even if you're not a car enthusiast, we all know the stereotype. They're in the left lane going 20 under the speed limit when everyone else is overtaking them on the right. And driving this, I was like, you know what? If my friend or partner or whoever got a Prius Prime, the current gen, this 2024, then I would have no qualms about it because it actually drives pretty well. We're gonna do a separate canyon carving review, which you can find linked in the description. but I'm going to say for daily driver duties, it drives quite well. We're soon going to explore how it handles the twisties when you push it. But the NVH is pretty average for the class. The drivetrain tuning is excellent. The inputs are pretty one-to-one natural and they fall into the background. The one thing that might surprise you initially is that the steering has a very fast ratio and it's a small size. So it gives you a sportier initial turn-in feel than you might expect. But it's very boosted, very light, and surprisingly you do get a little bit of texture in terms of feedback. No real loading up of the steering wheel. I mean, I guess once you get past center a tiny bit, but the feedback is quite limited. Fast ratio steering rack, small steering wheel though, makes it a pleasure to use. And when you're getting such great fuel efficiency in your daily driver, at this price point, 34K, makes a lot of sense. I will say though, there are a few annoyances. So one thing is that at this SE trim, it doesn't have auto headlights. So I need to turn on and off the headlights every time, which I feel like auto headlights is such a simple feature that we should have, right? I mean, they're giving you a heated steering wheel standard in all of these Prius Prime trims, but I would prefer auto headlights over a heated steering wheel. If you do want the heated front and rear seats, you have to go to the higher trims, the XSE, XSE Premium. Also, no phone charger in this SE trim. You have to go higher up for that. But you still largely get the things that matter, like the wireless Apple CarPlay, and you don't get a panoramic sunroof, but on the XSE Premium, you can actually get solar panels, which, maybe a couple miles boosted range if you're parking in the sun, and if you're driving, it'll actually help power the 12-volt system. But I think for the cost conscious, the SE at 34K, it's pretty good value. The XSE is gonna be $3,000 more than that, and of course, whether that $3,000 premium is worth it is up to your personal preference. I think at 34K, you are getting a good amount of vehicle here. We're now going to test this on the Canyons. If you want to see how it handles at the limit when it's being pushed, check out that video linked below. My friends, let me know what you think of the redesigned Prius Prime. I think it looks fantastic. Overall, a big home run for its intended purpose. But let me know your thoughts with a comment down below. Big thanks to Toyota for giving me the opportunity to review this car. Subscribe if you haven't already, my friends. Much love, and I'll see you all in that next one.